There is a silent epidemic of child abuse unfolding across Western civilization right now. It's affecting hundreds of thousands of children, and the devastating reality is that most Americans don't even know it's happening. Worse, the modern church, the body of Christ, often seems ill-equipped and unprepared to stand in the gap for these broken lives. What really happens behind closed doors and the very systems meant to protect children, and why do the true numbers of victims rarely reach the public? Is there a connection between foster care and child exploitation, even trafficking? We'll explore all of this and what you can do to make a difference in the life of a child in need right now. Welcome to LifeTVnow, where we unpack all matters of truth, faith, and freedom. I'm Jamie Woodle, and today's topic of discussion is very sobering. Very sobering, but necessary. Before we dive in, let me introduce who's here. She's the founder of Whispering Ponies Ranch, a charitable ministry for children in need of rehabilitation. Please welcome Nita Horn. Nice to be here. He's the CEO of LifeTVnow, a multi-time best-selling author and an award-winning film producer behind The Rescue, a 6-part documentary series. He's also a board-certified holistic health practitioner whose work in natural health, healing, and child rehabilitation is recognized worldwide. Please welcome Joe Horn. Now, Joe, you've recently written Innocence Shattered. It had to have been hard to write.
Well, and then the subtitle, Dismantling the Insidious War Against Our Children. Western civilization at large is totally unaware of the thousands and thousands and thousands of kids. It's a sea so far and so wide that most people can't even comprehend the totality of this problem. These are kids that society is totally unaware of being locked in dog cages. They're being beaten with bicycle chains or 2x4s. These are kids that have had their hands held on the tops of stoves as a form of discipline at the hands of malevolent abusers. These are not parents. These are not guardians. To me, these are captors. This problem is worsened by an overburdened foster care system that we can talk about if you want to. And it's being made much worse by the indulgence at large, people participating in the adult entertainment industry, which is largely responsible for fueling the demand for paid for, and let's just say assault of children. Because there's certain things on a program like this, network television, Christian outlets, I want to make sure that we sanitize this so the programs aren't being deplatformed or taken down, which is another really gravitous difficulty that I face as a child advocate that's written on these things. So the book, Innocence Shattered, details the very specific nature of this massive problem, but it does so in a way that is sanitary for Christian readership. There are no actual acts of violence or scenes of abuse written out, but it does provide the staggering data on what is behind this, where it's coming from, the root causes, and then, of course, at the end, an appendix for those that have been moved by it toward the Spirit of God to stand in the gap for children. A series of thought exercises crafted specifically to take the reader through a process of really looking introspectively at what they might be able to offer God in terms of a solution for standing in the gap for children. The one thing that the book absolutely accomplishes, if you finish reading it, is it leaves you excuseless.
Wow.
And this is something I know all too well. My beautiful mother, Nita, who joins us today as the founder of a place called Whispering Ponies Ranch, where we now as a family stand in the gap for the very children I'm describing. These are the kids that have been pulled out of sex trafficking. These are the kids that are wards of the state. They've been abused in every unimaginable, inconceivable way possible. These are children that literally hide under their beds at night from real-life monsters that live just down the hallway, waiting for their next abuse cycle, waiting for someone to stand in the gap for them, waiting for someone to rescue them, waiting for a hero to pay attention to them, to notice them. Many of these kids are at school. They're bearing all of the signs and symptoms for those that could discern what this looks like and maybe begin to investigate, poke around, ask questions, discover what's going on at home. And no one does. They're either ill-equipped or they're totally unknowledgeable to the whole discussion. So we, as a family, now look into the eyes of hurting children. And we want to put a stop to it. We want to put a stop to the underlying root causes of what's creating the demand in the first place for these malevolent actors that are now even willing to pay for the abuse of young people. So obviously the title, Dismantling the Insidious War Against Our Children. Last year when we put out the 6-part Rescue Us television docuseries, you have the book version, you have the much longer video version. It played out over a series of 6 episodes. They basically outlined the same thing. It is what we're calling as a family the Luciferian assault against God's most precious gift to us, and that is our children. If you want to know what tomorrow looks like, if you want to know what our leaders look like, our thinkers, our teachers, our police officers, our politicians, our church leaders, you look no further than the kind of children that we're raising today. So how are we doing? First of all, I want to say that this assault comes in many, many, many directions. Lucifer is very crafty. We have cartoons now that are trying to normalize inappropriate, intimate relationships between adults and children. Massive, massive studios that are purposefully producing cartoons utilizing propaganda to try to normalize things like gender confusion. This is happening in our school systems under the guise of bits of critical race theory or healthy sex education. We're now guiding children, toddlers basically, through whether or not they believe to be the gender that God assigned them when they came out of the womb. And what it's like to, like a choose your own adventure book, decide what your reality is and how you identify. We have social media apps now, AI companion apps that you can download. Children now being raised by screens. Where parents and guardians, the people that might love them, either don't have access to the children or the ones that do are letting television raise them. This is an epidemic. We have kids now that are spending more time talking to their companion AI apps about life's darkest and deepest and most gravitous questions that they can imagine. In their formative years, they're asking AI companion apps because they don't feel like they've got anyone else that they can talk to. And AI is guiding them through whether maybe unaliving themselves is a viable option for how to confront their depression. We have efforts from the mainstream media, our school systems, to try to normalize these things through the repackaging of words that used to carry a negative connotation. Words like PEDO, file. And I say it that way, not because I don't have the courage to say it, but because the minute I do, a lot of the algorithms that would have tolerated this episode will take the episode down.
Yeah, they will.
Through MAPS, minor attracted persons. See, it's not dark, it's not creepy, it's normal. This is just how someone was born. This is how they identify. And if they love somebody of that young age, it's love. And we're going to teach the children, by the way, that this is love, because we're also trying to normalize this to the degree that children of abuse no longer recognize it as abuse. Complicit victims of abuse, going along with whatever's happening at home so that they speak less. This is being packaged as love. Abuse cycles. I'm not going to go into all of the varying cartoons, the large multimedia streaming platforms that have had backlash just in the last year for pushing transgender ideologies or gender confusing ideologies or efforts to try to normalize this. I want to say that right now, I'm not here to disparage the foster care system. If you're a part of the foster care system and you opened up your home altruistically because you love the Lord and you want to create a safe haven for children, because you believe that this is a place for you where you can stand in the gap, this is your commission, this is your calling, then we applaud you because you're already part of the winning team. If you're in law enforcement and you're surveilling communities for signs of abuse and battery, the kinds of things that you would see synonymous with a lot of the more visible brands of abuse, you're already part of the good guy team. You're already doing something about this, whether you know that you are or not. If you're a caseworker standing in the gap for children that way, doing investigations into homes to try to find where these evil actors are, it's very difficult work. And the ones that have taken the kids in that are suffering some of the side effects of kids that have been through these abuse cycles, that is often very thankless in this life in terms of props, accolades, attaboys, very thankless. And if you're doing the good work because you love children, once again, you're already part of the good guy team. However, I want to caveat all of what I just said by telling you, in case you didn't know, the foster care system in and of itself, A, is a side effect of a spiritual problem in that we would not need a foster care system if parents wanted their children in the first place.
That's right.
If parents were taking care of their children in the first place, right? Prioritizing their children in the first place. This is a spiritual problem. Government does not cure spiritual problems.
No.
They're operated by human beings. Power, unmitigated power, or the perception of, often creates what? Corruption.
Yeah.
And so the foster care system in and of itself is not to blame for where all of these children came from.
Sure.
But in terms of handling the load, it's an overburdened system. And I don't want to give anyone ideas, but I have no choice but to report this. The foster care system is laden with predators, people that are opportunists. They see the blind spots, and they've literally made experts out of their ability to kind of interpret where these blind spots are. And they've used this system to line up victim after victim after victim. They are masters at how to milk the system and to work every blind spot. They know how the courts work. They know how many assertions of abuse can be tolerated before it's time to move children to another home. They know this. And this is how you have children in the foster care system who are able to say, man, I was abused by almost every person that I was with over the course of over a decade. And this is the ones that are blessed enough not to end up totally missing. Another massive problem is every year, countless young people and children come up missing from the foster care system, often listed as runaway. Well, runaway may be runaway, but runaway may also be we don't have a better narrative and we don't have the manpower to investigate an actual investigation to know where little Billy or little Susan went. Runaway. They have a history of running away. Maybe that enhances that narrative. Maybe they don't have a better explanation. Just to give you some kind of mathematical perspective of how bad this problem is, right now, as we're sitting here in 2026, the average will be more than 420,000 children. 420,000 children actively living right now in the foster care system. Now, of the 420,000 children actively living in foster care system, 90%, that is 90 percentile of them, are statistically guaranteed to experience at least 2 to 5 different types of abuse during their time in the system.
90%.
90%.
That's shocking.
Yeah, 90%. Take 10 children, line them up, 9 of them will come out of that system. Of the ones, again, that are not missing or that you never hear from again, the ones that survived the system that come out of it, 9 of the 10 will say they were touched, they were groped, much worse, they were physically violated. I'm not going to go into the descriptions of this, but it involves every kind of assault that decent people cannot imagine, and then much worse during their time in the system. And you might be wondering, how in the world is that possible here in the United States? You would think, right, that there would be this governing agency. They hear of abuse, they step in, they fix this problem. Abusers in that system are only, offered one child before they're discovered, and then that's the end. That's the cutoff. You're going to jail. But if you understand how overburdened it is and how desperate they are for homes and how difficult it is to get enough men and women on the investigatory part of determining whether abuse is quantifiable, and then you factor in that a lot of these kids have learned that pointing fingers is the only way that they get some attention, you get kind of the boy who cried wolf dynamic where he's decrying the absolute truth. But it isn't even clever. It's just Tuesday. Every 10 seconds in the United States right now, since we started this episode, every 10 seconds, there's a phone call somewhere in just the U.S. where abuse is being reported. Every 10 seconds. Now ask yourself, how many thousands of thorough investigations do you think are taking place? Right? This is how this happens over and over and over and over again. You might be wondering, of the children that age out of this program, are they equipped, statistically ready to do life? Do they have the kind of vocational training? Do they have the social skills to integrate and become productive members of society? You would hope, at least the ones that have survived this gauntlet without becoming dead or missing, that they would have some benefit from having survived it. I mean, it's better than living under a bridge, right? Well, 80% of the young men that age out of foster care will become incarcerated almost right away, having no coping skills whatsoever.
Wow.
What's worse is society now has stigmatized these kids.
Yeah.
They've seen them in their public schools. They're not interested in the backstory. They just know that Billy lashes out. He's not employable. He's trouble. He comes from bad stock, the narrative says. So Billy, embracing that identity, goes to the only life that he's been told he can have, and that is one of crime, as a drug lord, as an enforcer, maybe somebody petty theft until they're arrested, and now they're living in jail. A misdemeanor leads to a homicide, leads to something more complicated. See, this is Lucifer's plan for these children, is to first be captive and then live a life of absolute death and total destruction. 70% of the young women will be pregnant statistically in their early 20s with children that are almost statistically guaranteed to end up back where? Can you guess? Mom, you know. Where do they go?
Back into foster care.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
They have no comprehension for life. They have no maternal sense of developed life perspective.
It was never role modeled for them.
It was never role modeled. They've never been shown love and affection themselves. And worse, they fear the day that they will think of their own children the way that their mother made them feel that she thought about them.
Oh.
Worse than that, they fear that their children will grow up and hate them with the same hatred that they have for their own biological mothers. Do you see the cycle? It goes on and it goes on and it goes on. Now, something that we're not going to belabor today, because I do want to pivot in this episode to some of the hopeful things that we see God doing when he meets these broken children. It defies all secular understanding of psychology, all of the programs that exist to provide rehabilitation. What we see at a place called Whispering Ponies Ranch when Jesus Christ meets these kids face to face is nothing short of supernatural. But before we get to some of what we see God doing there, I just want to go one more layer to this gauntlet, and it is so large we were never going to get it all into a short form episode like this. The foster care to human pipeline for sex trafficking. And again, because of the blind spots, because of the number of children that come up missing, because of how predators are exploiting this system, a lot of the kids that come up missing, they're also feared to be forced into prostitution. And this is the destiny of a lot of these children, and get this, by way of their own guardians or family members. I'm talking about drug-addicted parents, uncles, stewards, guardians, the ones that have custody.
People close to them.
The ones close to them are offering them to square bad drug deals. Or they're so hooked on what their dependency has become, they offer the children as a form of entertainment to get somebody to maybe move the literal gun from the back of their head. They've taken such pleasure with the children themselves that they've used them as household entertainment. So this is a form of forced prostitution, where you use the child. It never leaves the home. It's never trafficked in the sense that you watch a movie and somebody in a van pulls up and takes the child and you never see them again. But they're being used for pleasure and even loaned out for pleasure at the malevolent hands of people that are nothing short, in my view, of deeply troubled, likely demonic. That you could even find pleasure in not just the abuse of children, but this goes very dark. And I very carefully deal with this in the book Innocence Shattered. How dark this goes, that you could be capable of not just taking pleasure in the abuse of a child, but the suffering of a child. This is why I say this is demonic. People are not inherently born with an interest in some of what society has started to do with these children. And that's why the book is Innocence Shattered. We have seen this face to face, the side effects of kids that have been handled so many times that for them it was normal. This was love. And so you're not just dealing with the pain and the exhaling wails of terror. You're dealing with trying to reshape a perspective of love back to what Christ intended it to be. They have no basis at all or comprehension of what normal is. When we work with children at Whispering Ponies Ranch, we can't even say things like, "we love you." There are words that are trigger words that you would take for granted if you've only been in a healthy home. Good job, little Billy could mean anything to little Billy. So your affirmation has to be very generic in presentation, but very meant from the heart.
It's difficult.
Until you get to know a child who maybe uses words first, you learn parts of the backstory. In some of these children's case did not have to do with assault. It had to do with neglect. Many of the kids that we serve, they're taking things home in their pockets from the public school lunch. They do the same thing at Whispering Ponies Ranch. They've never had clean food. They'll only eat institutionalized, pre-canned foods because anything they've seen in the fridge has been neglected so long it makes them sick. They're watching the expiration dates. They're malnourished. They have deficiencies in every kind of mineral, potassium, magnesium. So to kind of round this out, you do see the scenario depicted in movies. The white van shows up in the middle of the night. forces someone into it. They take them to
Right.
Europe. You never see them again. You do see that.
That's a form of it, yes.
It is a form of it. But in my view, and I bring the receipts in the book Innocence Shattered, most of how trafficking is taking place is happening online through a process called grooming. It is conditioning children to interact with very dangerous individuals who have every intention at first of leaving that child placed where they're already at, but finding a way to eventually have their way with that child. So be watching. What does that look like? What does that look like for a young child to be being groomed but still in place where they currently live? If you're a school teacher, if you're a parent in proxy, if you're a Sunday school teacher, if you're somebody that works with children and you have an opportunity to recognize markings that don't square up with how often little Billy says he fell on his skateboard, that might be a situation where you would want to call child services to see if they are interested in conducting an interview or an investigation. Poke around. Pay attention to young people coming home with pedicures and manicures that you know they did not have the money to buy. A lot of these are children that are being picked up at school and then returned to school by a potential sugar daddy or somebody that's looking to kind of show them the kind of affection that they didn't get at home. And by the way, if you're wondering what prime targets are, it's homes with very weak or almost non-existent parental involvement. So weak dads that are not engaged. They look for this stuff on Facebook. They're looking for the little girl. She's super trendy. She's got the stuff. And she's doing the Facebook posts. And they're looking at the total family. Does she also post with dad?
Right.
Does he look
Engaged.
opposing? Does he look engaged? Conservative Christian family with dad right there. Next. This is why, by the way, tragically, again, foster care children. Not only are these foster children 4 to 5 times more likely to unalive themselves than those children living in homes not foster care, but they're also premium target for traffickers, sugar daddies, Johns, and those looking to force them into prostitution because of the fact that they already have histories of depression. They have issues with feeling inept and unvalued. They're looking for someone to affirm them, to talk them into a life of glam, they're told. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
So this is happening often without the captor or the guardian paying any attention, or they're a part of it. Let's make a deal. So if you want to talk some more next week, we can talk about the adult entertainment industry. And there are some shocking revelations behind how that fuels human trafficking. But what if I told you that in addition to the church, I'm talking about the modern entertainment-based church, largely being totally uninvolved in this dilemma whatsoever, from the moral, ethical teachings of Jesus Christ and his absolute truth to the participation in the very industries fueling the demand for the use of children, the exploitation of children, that this is happening at the pulpit level. This is our United States church leadership behind this. If I told you that, would that absolutely blow your mind? Well, next week I'm going to explain how that's possible.
Well, Joe, for our viewers who have been watching this very sobering, heavy topic, hard to hear even, and I've been in churches across America most of my entire life, and not one time was this subject ever brought up. This is incredibly important what you're doing. And if our viewers would like to get your book, where can they go to find it?
Well, they can buy it anywhere that books are sold. You can purchase it on Amazon.com if that's handy for you. You have a Prime account, that's slick, and you want to do that, absolutely do that. If you want to specifically, though, help the ministry that's being done at Whispering Ponies Ranch, if you want to be a part of standing in the gap for a hurting child, and you believe in what's happening at Whispering Ponies Ranch, and you want to be a part of that, you can go to our good friends over at Skywatch TV. That's skywatchtvstore.com, because when you order the book from skywatchtvstore.com, those proceeds, being that Skywatch TV is the non-for-profit ministry that underwrites the good work that's happening at Whispering Ponies Ranch, that's a direct way that you can support that ministerial effort. Again, you can purchase the book at amazon.com, or you can order it from skywatchtvstore.com if you want to support the non-for-profit efforts that Skywatch TV is using to underwrite the ministerial work, the rehabilitation that's happening at Whispering Ponies Ranch.
And if you'd like to support Skywatch TV and maybe the book isn't for you, you can do that by going to the skywatchtvstore.com, and you can donate directly to Skywatch TV, who underwrites this very important ministry. Joe, have you always been a child advocate, or do you feel there was a season of your life that specifically prepared you for the work you're doing now?
Well, with only a couple of minutes left, I'll have to make this quick. And I will say my mom wins because, right, she was there way before me, forging this place called Whispering Ponies Ranch. Her and my father, who passed away in late 2023, they were building this place years ago before I was what I would have considered a child advocate. They had a vision for it way earlier than I did. My mom was taking steps to build this place. While I was out, playing the guitar and training dogs, and my life was totally different. To collapse again, we're super out of time. But no, I want to say right now, I totally identify with the guy out there that says to himself, man, that is too much for me. I don't mind being in ministry, but man, that's dark. That's heavy. I remember sitting at a church service on an Easter Sunday some years ago where a guest speaker came in with a ministry that was rescuing children, literally physically going in and pulling them out of the sex trade industry and then rehoming them here in the United States. And I remember at that day going home, Lord, that's too much. That is so heavy. That is just beyond me. I used every excuse. My health, I'm a father. I cannot dwell on these dark things. It's just, I'm glad that you send some people, the strong ones, to do that, but I just can't deal with it. Opal Singleton comes to Skywatch TV like in 2014. She's an expert in grooming. She's talking with Derek Gilbert way back in the day, a good friend of mine, about the risks of child grooming. And she's talking in length about some of what we just teased a little bit here today. And again, Lord, I just can't deal with this. Oh, my word, it's just too heavy. I can't, this is just not good. I mean, thank you again for Opal, but man, oh man, me, with my thresholds, this is going to this is going to wreck me. Tom Dunn sends me a DVD called Detestable. He's looking at the occult side of the damage that these children are suffering at the Luciferian hands of literal demonic possessed people and what's happening to some of the ones that you never see again. And I am just like, this is too much. It's too much. It's too much, Lord. And one day while I was I call it now whine praying, Lord, man, you know me. You built me this way, my thresholds. I really felt like he kind of put a stop to it. He said, Joe, for all of your lamenting and whining and obfuscating what I'm clearly calling you to pay attention to. This is your responsibility. It's your neighbor's responsibility. I don't care what part of the body of Christ you play. This is your responsibility. So I say God had to kind of wear me down because I had plans and he had better ones. But I totally get it if you're watching this and you feel like, man, this is just... it's not for me. I'm telling you, this is the responsibility of the body of Christ. Matthew 25, it is the orphans and the widows. If we're not paying attention to the little ones that are screaming out in terror, we have completely failed as a church.
That's right. Amen. Well, unfortunately, we're all out of time. Thank you for joining us today. For everybody in studio, Joe, Nita, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I'm Jamie Woodle. We'll be back.